news a lot for everyone. But I had a Canadian citizen. He actually was born in Nigeria, but he's now a Canadian citizen, looking for a position with my company that's here in the U.S. And I didn't know that the immigration status for Canadian citizens and Mexican citizens, they can easily apply with no cost to the employer.
Really?
As long as the position is available and they're qualified. I had no idea about that. It's a different type of from the H-1B visa.
Yeah.
And it also is part of the NAFTA agreement, which I didn't know that either.
And the NAFTA agreement is the North American, Free Trade Agreement?
Yeah.
And so when you say employers have to pay, so in order for someone for applying to a job who has an H-1B visa, right?
Yep.
That means the employer has to sponsor that person, right?
Yeah, and there is a significant cost associated with that. A lot of employers will kind of shy away sometimes, depending on what their budgets look like. But but this is the first time a Canadian person has approached, and so I learned that. I had to look into it. So as many years as I've been doing recruiting, I had really learned something today, and that just shows you're always learning in your profession.
Absolutely, that's the way it should always be.
Definitely. I had a conversation with a dear friend, Bernadette Foster is her name, and she was the immigration specialist at the Wistar Institute. And man, we just had a great conversation about some of her views on immigration status and working and things of that nature. I actually asked her to be a guest on the show down the road. I think it's a conversation we should definitely have. Yeah, I believe she's with Penn now, but that's part of the family over there.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, Bernadette, if you're listening, which I know you were listening last week, so I already chalked you in. I got you penciled in for later on this month. Actually, it's Women's History Month, so I think that would be a great time to bring her onto the show. Yeah, definitely. So I was running around the city like a madman because that's what I do for our listeners. And no, seriously, I was running around. But you know, the weather's been beautiful. It's 70 degrees today and 100 degrees in the studio right now. but I was running around the city. Doing what I do, trying to connect with people for the purpose of helping career seekers. And I stopped by the CareerLink office in Center City. So they gave me some information to share with our listeners. And I'm going to go through some of this stuff, and Tiff's going to help me out as well. But the CareerLink in Center City, Philadelphia, 1617 JFK Boulevard, second floor, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, they have an Ace the Interview session. At 2 o'clock, they have community partner Career Wardrobe coming out to the CareerLink on 1617 JFK. I'm sorry, at 1 o'clock I jumped this tip, but there may be a reason for me jumping this. It's the Microsoft Excel beginners class that you've advocated
that I
for.
love so much.
And then on Friday at 1 o'clock, modern interviewing, and they follow that up also at 1 p.m. with a computer class on Microsoft Word for beginners. So some great things going on in Center City. I believe you have some information about some things that are going on out in Germantown.
I actually have, looks like some more stuff going on in Center City.
Sure. Okay.
We have on tomorrow, which is March 2nd, it's 9 a.m. do's and don'ts of resumes, and that lasts for 2 hours, and we talk about resumes are the most important thing that you need to have ready to go when it comes to getting your job search in order. So make sure you can attend, if you can attend that. And this is at Suburban Station at 1617 JFK. So that's 2 hours starting at 9 a.m. tomorrow. At 10 a.m. there's a modern interviewing session. And that's interesting. My guess, because they're calling it modern interviewing, it might have something to do with behavioral interviewing.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really good.
Sounds like it, right?
Yeah.
I think we'll definitely end up talking about that on the show, because it definitely is a different way to approach interviewing.
Absolutely.
For sure. And you have to do a lot of prep work in order to ace those interviews.
A lot of storytelling.
Absolutely.
As part of it, yeah.
And being really aware of the kinds of things that you have to offer. And then at 1 o'clock tomorrow, we have I say we because this is a CareerLink family. We're all talking about career seekers, so it's kind of family affair here. Right, at 1 p.m. tomorrow at 1617 JFK is peer mock interviews. And this is a good opportunity when you're dealing, there's a low bar, right? So the pressure is low bar in the sense that this is not for an actual job, but it gives you the opportunity to practice peer mock interviews are such a great opportunity, and my guess is that they have people who have been given a little bit of insight and advice as to how to conduct the mock interviews so you can simulate the real life environment as best as you can. So again, that's tomorrow at 1617 JFK in Philadelphia, close to a lot of public transportation, so you can definitely get down there. And this is PA Career Link, lots of great resources, and that's Thursday, March 2nd.
That's awesome. So I just want to give people information too about the other location for the Career Link, which is in Germantown. It's at 5847 Germantown Avenue.
Yeah, that's Germantown and Haynes, I believe. Yeah, Germantown Ave, Haynes Street. Where you at?
Okay, thanks for that, because I wouldn't know that. I'm not familiar with that. But so also tomorrow at 1 o'clock, there's an ACE the Interview workshop. Then at 2 o'clock, so if you could stay for both right after, is a community partner career wardrobe. So it looks like someone will be coming in to help with what you should wear, what you should not wear, and help. The Career Wardrobe is a nonprofit here in the city that helps people getting back to work and helping you prepare for success for your first interview. Mm-hmm. Mostly for women, but they do also have male clothing.
And part of dressing for success is really like sometimes when you just when you look the part, you feel the part, no matter what kind of interview you're preparing for. So that's a good session.
And then Friday again at the Germantown and Haynes, 5847 Germantown. Friday at 1 o'clock is another modern interviewing, which Tiffany had just mentioned at the Center City location. It's likely about the new behavioral interviewing. And then there's a computer class, the Microsoft Word for Beginners. And I know Tiffany is our resident tech person here, but I can't say enough about, there are so many new versions of Microsoft Word, which includes also Excel, well, the Microsoft Office suite, I should say, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. And they are updated so often, it's so good. Even if you think you know it, go get a refresher.
Right, because they'll move a menu around on you, and you won't know how to find copy and paste anymore.
Exactly. Where's my banner?
Exactly.
Excellent. So let's just keep it moving real quick. North Philly, we didn't forget about you. The Career Link at 5th and Bristol. 5th Street. You know what? We got Will Martin in the studio today as well. I'm sorry I missed you earlier. I didn't get to tell everybody that you were here.
What's up,
Hey, how y'all doing?
Live on Facebook. Will, the reason I mentioned you was because I was at 5th Street yesterday and I was hanging out with Francis and Kim, and they were listening to Michael Jackson, and they were having a really good time out there. Wow. It was crazy. And I said, know what, I think we need to hit the road, man, with the camera and just start recording when we go into some of these places and record the career seekers and see what's going on. So let's put that together.
No doubt.
So 5th Street, 11 o'clock Thursday, networking to find a job. 10 o'clock Thursday, community partner Equal Opportunity Center will be visiting the Career Link offices. Once again at 5th and Bristol. 2 o'clock, so you have an interview. That is the session. So you have an interview. So I guess they'll be giving people information about, what you need to do once you get the interview. Do some research, right? Exactly. Things of that nature. So that should be really interesting. Friday at 11, make career fairs work for you. I love it. Then they'll have a manufacturing Make It Your Career at 1 p.m. And then at 1:30, Tiff, this is of some interest to you, legal issues and employment.
Always necessary. That's of interest to everyone.
Yeah, good point.
You don't want to get yourself in any legal hot water.
Yeah, but applicants, you need to know that too. Candidates, you need to know what interviewers should not be saying.
Exactly.
So that takes place at 1:30, and then at 2 o'clock, they have a resume builder session that will run for about an hour and a half. That's all on Friday, the last 4 things I mentioned. So that's the way to end a Friday. If you go to that session at 2, you'll be there until about 3:30, and then you can get your weekend started. Your resume's right, you know how to interview.
Right, ready for that interview next week. Right, that's what I'm talking about.
So you can correct us at careerseekers.work, or you can check us out on the Facebook fan page, or you can check us out at phillycam.org, and of course here on WPPM at 106.5. I really want to have a conversation. Well, I want to kind of take part and just listen into this conversation that Tiffany and Alberta are going to have. It's Women's History Month. I thought it would be a great idea for them to talk about women in careers, and I'll just sit back and listen, because at 4:35 we have Jody Brockington coming in, lifestyle and fitness guru. So I'm going to turn it over. I'm just going to sit back and let y'all do what you do. Let's go, Alberta. Tiffany, what's good?
Yeah, no. So we just want to, talk a little bit about maybe our experience with what we've been doing and how we've found success. And there's so much information, just Googling it. Tiffany and I were talking about right before we went live. There is a lot of information out there, but how do you figure out what's right? Right. It's what's right for you. And there are a bunch of lists. One of them I found that I really liked. Board member, president of boards. And I have found that it has immensely helped my leadership capabilities and helped me grow as a professional, that I could then take those skills back into my job that I was doing. So it became more of a career and how to better enhance my skill set.
So how do you, and I think that's a great point, because I think a lot of us have interests that are outside of the things that we do at work every day.
Hopefully.
Right, hopefully, right? And maybe you love your job so much that you don't even, that there's nothing else that you're interested in doing.
Yeah.
But I think that it's great, even if at the moment you don't have something that you think you might be interested in, start to ask questions. Ask yourself, well, what do I really care about? Are there issues that I really care about? Because I think and as Alberta mentioned, it's an opportunity for you to have a leadership opportunity that you would not have at work based on your title or based on the structure of your organization. But then you can then say, hey, I have, I've been able to do this. If I was treasurer for this organization, I can come back and I've learned to manage a budget somewhere else. Maybe I can have some of that responsibility here at work.
Yeah, and you can bring that up to your supervisor or take it to the next position.
Right.
And that's looked at very fondly.
Right. For the next one. So you have been a recruiter for your entire career, or just you've done a little bit of different things?
Except for a little bit of a stint as a environmental paralegal initially.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not going to tell you how long ago that
was. Your secret's safe with me.
And now with our listeners, I hope, right? And then I also, for probably about 9 months, was the executive director of a nonprofit, but all through that, still mostly a corporate recruiter.
Okay, and so I know, so that means you've gone from different types of companies. Do you notice that some career advice that worked well in one company may not have necessarily translated to another, or have you been able to find a good mix of things that work across your career?
There is a good mix, so that's a great question. But there are definitely differences from corporation to corporation. The culture is much different, so where you might have, it's a little bit different now, but back when I was first recruiting, it was mostly for law firms, but it was very buttoned up. Everybody wore a suit, heels for women, you had to wear your pantyhose. I know it's relaxed now for a lot of places, but then when I moved on to other organizations, they weren't quite that way, and it was a little more relaxed. So any of my skill sets that I had to relax. Yeah. So not, so I didn't have to be so buttoned up on how I interviewed people or the types of people I was looking for.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think that goes into one of the things that I think over the course of my career, I've noticed myself, I've gotten more comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a parallel between your career development and your personal development, which is one of the things that I talk about a lot with my clients, is that in American, at least in Western society, we separate our lives into these buckets where we have our career life, we have our personal life. When in reality, if I feel like if you're doing it right and you're doing your very best work, you are able to bring a combination of those two, who you are. You can exist in your workspace that way. And of course, not being, not cursing if you don't curse, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Yeah. Not being unprofessional, but really being comfortable in who you are. And I think you mentioned knowing that you had to say, okay, well, I used to have to be this way at this place, but I can relax a little bit more and be more of who I am. So I think that comes down to being authentic and learning. It takes time to learn who you are, and so you can bring more of your authentic self to work. And I think that that's something that women, I think as we develop in our own skin are able to do that more. And then what that does for your supervisors, for your colleagues, they're more comfortable with you because you're more comfortable with yourself.
That's
right. And so it's like you're just, when you can walk into a room and feel confident in who you are, then people have to respect that. They have
really
to
do.
want, or they can try not to, and then you can check them and be like, wait, but.
But they do. That's really great. They respond better to you.
Right, right.
You know, that's an interesting point you bring up, because as a diversity recruiter, oftentimes that's the piece of the conversation. I can look at the information I have in front of me, a resume, a LinkedIn profile, and see if someone is qualified for the opportunity and if it's a good match on paper. But what's the company culture like? Can I bring my true self to the job? And I think that's to what you're speaking about. And I wasn't thinking initially on the side of a woman, you know, and I know that's this conversation, but it's like, wow, you know, can you bring your true self to the job for anybody, for anyone? But because the numbers typically, and I don't know about your offices, but, you know, I've worked in a few, in staffing, it's a little different. You know, it could be a female dominated to a certain
Absolutely.
extent.
And HR, I was just thinking that's HR as well.
Right.
But, you know, but you have so many fields. And Tiffany, I was reading an article about an individual that, I can't remember what firm she was with, but you know, she was speaking to, it was a location out in the Midwest, but she was not only the only female in the actual office, but an African-American female as well. And so what she did, she actually kind of volunteered herself to take over the college recruitment piece.
Okay.
And she started recruiting a more diverse pipeline of candidates.
Right.
And she said, you know, the change has been slow, but it's changed nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think that brings up the idea of your like intersectionality, right? Because I think as a Black woman, I know that there are things that I think about that are related to my race, and then there are also things that I think about related to my gender.
Sure.
And at a certain point, sometimes the line is clear and sometimes it's not. And so you have to think about, well, how am I going to exist in this space if I am the only Black woman in this room? So I'm the only woman, and I'm also the only Black person. So what line, if someone says something that I want to, that I really want to question, or I want a little bit more exploration on, how do I bring that up, or do I bring it up at all? Right. And that's,
is it okay?
Is it okay?
How do I figure out if it's okay?
Exactly. And I think and I am not a mother, but I imagine that there are also instances where that comes up for mothers as well, where you have to figure out, well, is this a time for me to say something about this, or do I let this moment pass? Which is a hard decision to make in the moment, especially.
Right. Well, and that leads to another piece of advice that's on this list that I told you I found is find yourself a mentor. They've been started to be called advocates, sponsors, that depending, you know, kind of what you're looking for. The mentor doesn't necessarily need to be in the same career field, but maybe they've had the same experience you had, and they can help guide you through how to find your real self at work, what that looks like.
You know, it's interesting. I automatically thought about an internal mentor, sponsor, and/or advocate. But what you're saying is it can be someone completely outside of the four walls you're in doing work. That's mentoring you on
and you
how
can
to
have more than one.
Absolutely. And I think that is what's important about there's like the value of an internal mentor and the value of an external mentor. There are things that you can say to your external mentor, depending on who it is, that you might not be able to say internally because you don't know where that conversation might end up going, right? But the sponsor and advocate piece, and I learned this distinction kind of relatively recently. A mentor is someone who like offers guidance and kind of is like a sounding board for you, whereas a sponsor is someone who is going to use their political capital and their social capital to help you move your career forward. So I'm like, I see you have this skill set. Let me connect you to this person internally to make sure that we get you in front of this group of people. Where and not every organization, there's not always space for that. There might not always be somebody who you can identify as that sponsor, but when you develop relationships with people, then you can, and people kind of want to invest in you because they say, oh, this girl is smart, this woman has something going for her, I want to help to see her succeed. And that again comes when you talk about authenticity and knowing more of who you are, knowing more of what you want, and that allows those kinds of relationships to develop.
Yeah, definitely. So, did you have any piece of your list that you wanted to share?
I do. I think one of the things in thinking about general career growth, and I mean, and this is not, of course, not exclusive to women, but I definitely think that you have to really invest in yourself.
Right.
And I think that as women, we often find ourselves sacrificing our time and efforts and energy for a lot of other people, be it our families, be it our friends, and kind of stepping in the background a little bit, depending on what someone else might have going on. But sometimes you have to say, okay, well, you know what? I want to go to this conference, or I want to learn this particular skill set. So if that means finding a way to use your own personal funds to do that thing, or finding a way to use your company's funds to allow you to do that thing, which is even better, right? So we're talking about tuition reimbursement, you're talking about different kinds of opportunities, professional development, going to conferences, even if it's a day long, if it's a continuing in the legal profession, they're called continuing legal education. Yes. So whatever it is that's parallel to where you are. I was talking to a young man today who was taking a certification for so he could learn to be a manager, and he worked in the restaurant industry, and so it's something like that where he's like, okay, I have to spend a little bit more time, so that's time investment, not necessarily finances, but you have to, if you want to advance, you have to be able to take time outside of time and money that is outside of the things that you do every day between 9 and 5 to make sure that you can move yourself forward.
Investing in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was just going to add that just remember too, everybody, we're all so busy. I mean, let's face it, everyone is. And a lot of people say, I just don't have the time, I just don't have the time. Well, you do have the time.
Right.
If you really want to accomplish something,
you find a way.
You really do.
You
really do. You find somebody, if you do have kids or little kids, you have somebody help you watch them or make that time to go away to that conference and to, not all the seminars might cost money, but you'll find a way.
You'll find a way, and that just goes back to planning. I think another thing in thinking about overall career development is being able to articulate your value.
Yes.
And that is something that when you're first starting out, and you need to be able to articulate your value when you walk in the door, right? Because that's initially what got you that first job. So whether you're starting, it's your first day, or you're 5, 6, 7, 10 years into your career, but you need to be able to say at any given moment what you are bringing to the position that you're in.
Exactly.
And what do you want to learn? What unique value are you contributing? And you need to be able to articulate that both verbally as well as in your resume, as well as on your LinkedIn profile. Because when you do that, then there can be no questions asked, because you're not fumbling around, well, I kind of think I could do this, but I think I might. No, clearly this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm capable of. But that goes back to some of the things when you invest in yourself, when you have mentors, when you have relationships with people, you develop your leadership potential, you are then able to pull all those pieces together in a way that tells a story and a picture and a clear picture of the kind of value that you bring.
And that's one of the pieces on the list that I have of advice is learn communication skills.
Right.
And that's with your boss, interview skills, your network at home, and those communication skills then help you to communicate your worth, your value, and make you. And again, going back to the first part, being your real self.
Absolutely. While you're running this. Absolutely. And sometimes it's even if you just have to practice in the mirror. I remember when I was preparing for my first set of interviews as a rising second-year law student. So the way the legal profession recruits, for those who are not familiar, is law firms hire, you hire people 2 years before they're actually ready to start. You make them offers, right? So I have a master's in social work. I was coming straight from undergrad, and then I went straight into a master's and went straight into law school. So I only had 10 weeks of work experience in between summers. And so I had to practice why I wanted to work in a corporate law firm, and why I had to convince, essentially had to make an argument why I'm making this change. Yeah. And I remember literally saying things over to the days before my interviews, repeating over and over and over again my argument, so to speak, and why I could contribute and what my transferable skills. So I just say all that to say that communication, you can do it by yourself. If you make it a kind of cadence and you practice it, you can't lose if you practice it properly.
Yeah, there's plenty of professional sports. You practice, even the kids in high school practice, lower grades. same thing as you grow up and want to do something else to improve your skills. Even now, I think I would probably practice something if I was looking for another position.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. And I think the last piece that that I want to share is really setting boundaries. And this was something that one of my actually she's a mentor of mine who started out as a recruiter in the firm when I first started, and then we've since moved on to go in different places, but I still go to her as I'm making career decisions. And she told me that because at the time I was single, did not have any children, I felt this guilt that I needed to stay at work for forever. Because just because I didn't have family responsibilities to go home to. And she said, listen, you have life.
Exactly.
You have interests that you have outside of work. You do not have to sacrifice in a way just because you think other people think that you should.
Right.
And so setting those boundaries, taking vacations that you have earned, taking personal time when you need to. And I know it's much easier said than done for someone who does not have family responsibilities, but you have to prioritize the boundaries that you set when you're talking about spending time at work versus spending time outside
okay that
work.
you don't have children. Your worth is just as much as the next person.
Exactly.
It's the Career Seeker Show, live on WPPM FM 106.5. Great conversation with Tiffany, Southerland, Alberta, Bertolino. It's Women's History Month. We'll be back after the break with Jody Brockington.